one.
Today's date is August 15th, 2023. My name is Chad Gibbs, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Ruth Eisenfeld for the USC Shoah Foundation. This is a remote interview. Ruth is located in London, UK, while I'm conducting the interview from Charleston, South Carolina, in the United States.
Very interesting. Yeah.
3, 1.
So, Ruth, could you please introduce yourself?
Pardon? Introduce myself. I'm Ruth.
Yes, please.
I'm Ruth Eisenfeld. That's my name. What else do you want to know?
What was your name when you were born?
I was born Ruth Hochhauser. Hochhauser.
Hochhauser. How do you spell Hochhauser?
Oh my God. It's Hochhauser.
And what year and what was the date of your birth?
The 8th of January, 1932.
How old does that make you today?
Sorry?
How old are you today?
How am I doing today? Well,
how old are you today? Sorry.
What was the question? Ask me the question again.
How old are you today? What's your age?
How old I am today? 91. Yeah.
Okay. Where were you born?
In Germany, in Breslau.
Breslau.
Yeah.
What's that city called today?
Today it's called Wrocław. It's gone Polish. It's Polish now. It's Poland. Yeah.
Okay. What can you tell us to start your story? What can you tell us about your early childhood?
Oh, I think I had a very happy childhood, yes. My family, I had a very good relationship with my sister and my parents, and I think we were a very happy family. That's what I can say before the war, yeah.
How many siblings did you have, and what was the names of your family?
Well, I had one sibling, which I still have today, and her name was Dora. But now she likes to be called Doris, So, but she's alive, she's well.
That's wonderful. What's her last name today?
My last name today? Eisenfeld.
Her last name?
Well, Eisenfeld today.
And Dora's last name?
The Salzman. Yeah.
Salzman.
Yeah.
What are your mother and father's names?
My mother's called Marie or Miriam, and my father's called Eli. Yeah. And they were very good parents. I think we were a very happy family. That's how I see it. They were probably terribly worried about Hitler, etc., but they didn't come over to us with these worries, these terrible concerns. Yeah. So.
What did your father do for a living?
My father was a businessman. Yes, he had a business of garments, like coats and dresses and all that, yes, in Germany, yes. Yeah.
And your mother?
My mother was helping him. She didn't have anything special, but she was helping him a lot. Actually, my mother was the brain in that business. She was very bright, yes. Yes.
And
what?
What more do you remember about your early years? Was your family very religious?
Yes. in the beginning, they were they both come from religious families, but it dropped out. It dropped out on the way. It was too heavy. Yes. No, after the war, my parents were no longer quite so religious at all. No.
Did your parents come from large families?
From where? From my parents came
Large
from
families?
large families. Yes, my father had 5 brothers and 3 sisters. So that was a large family of my father. Yes. My mother had 3 siblings. So there were only 4 there. Yeah. Large families.
What language did you speak at home?
Oh, well, to begin with, I was born in Germany, so we spoke German at home, but gradually it was less of it, it became a bit, you see, it was not what's called Hochdeutsch, it was not the best of German, because that was not our culture. We were not welcome in Germany anymore. And so, yes, we went.
Were your parents Yiddish speakers?
They could speak Yiddish as well as German, as well as Polish. Yes. But, yes.
Where did your parents get married?
Where they got married in wait a minute. They got married in Breslau. I think so. In Germany they got married, but they're both of Polish origin. Yeah.
I read in your book that your parents actually got married in Oswiecim.
In Oswiecim, yes. In Oswiecim, that's right. That's absolutely right. Oswiecim was the horrible place, Auschwitz. But that was not the case then. I had a number of my family living in Oswiecim, but eventually they went to the gas chambers, many of them, not all. Yeah.
What is your earliest memory?
What? My earliest memory? What kind of? When I was very small, at home, a happy kid, I was a very happy child. That's what I remember,
And as the war approached, what was like about in 1938?
The war approached, my parents got worried. We were still in Germany, and they decided to put both of us onto the Kindertransport. The Kindertransport that came to Belgium, this one. So we went to Belgium to live with my maternal grandmother. Yes. And so we went in Antwerp for a time, my sister and I. And my parents stayed back in Germany for a bit longer. They had to liquidate the shop as much as possible because most Jewish shops were even set on fire, destroyed, plundered, but not ours, because ours was on the first floor. It was not visible from the street, so it was not destroyed. It was spared. So my parents came to Belgium to join both of us. And my sister still is in Belgium to this day, and I'm here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you learn how your parents get you on that transport?
Did I what? Did I learn how they got it? They got on the Kindertransport. Yes. Well, it was very full up already at the time, but they still managed to get us on a train to Belgium, out of Germany. That's what mattered, you see, because they could foresee that, especially my mother, she could foresee what might happen. Yeah.
Do you remember, do you have specific memories of Kristallnacht?
Oh, absolutely. I was still there, and I still remember Kristallnacht, the way they set on fire the synagogue. They said they demolished the shops, the Jewish shops. Yes, I do remember that. I didn't quite understand what it was all about, but yes, my parents were very upset about this. But yes, of course I remember that.
And your book said that your parents managed to escape the Polen Action.
What?
Do you remember how they did that?
They managed, my parents, yes, my parents sent us to Belgium, and later on they came illegally because their papers were not all right. They came walking, actually, to Belgium, to my maternal grandmother's house, and we were together. Yes, the four of us. We were very tightly fitted in a small apartment, but it was good. Yes, the Germans had not.
What did you?
They had not invaded yet. No, I don't know. What? What did I? What? The Germans invaded.
Oh,
The Germans.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah, what? The Germans occupied Belgium after that, you see. So it was beginning to get very serious. Yes. So in 1941, I think, I went with my sister to a children's home to be hidden there, because it was a place called Belleuil. Belleuil is a small town in Belgium where there is a prince and a castle, and that's where we went, because he had a lot of children. He made a home for poor children, sick children, all kinds of children were there, also kind of poor children, and we were there too, my sister and I. Yeah, in 41 it was, yeah. I mean, eventually.
What was life like at that school?
What? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Oh.
That question.
What was life like at?
What?
What was life like at that school?
At the school, there was no school there. It was not a school. It was a children's home for poor children at that time. The Prince de Ligne had opened his castle for poor children who were affected by the war. So we were there as well. And one of the volunteers who worked there, she decided, because I was very, very skinny and very miserable and very depressed and all that, she was very terribly young still, and a volunteer, she took me to her parents. She decided that I should not stay there, I should go to her parents. And there I stayed till the end of the war. Very good people looked after me. I was given a false name, everything. I had to change my identity because I was not supposed to be anywhere, because the Nazis had the addresses for everybody, from everybody. They knew where to find people. So I had a different name. And I was only little, so I was okay. So that family took me on. That is, the parents of that volunteer took me on and looked after me extremely well, like as if I was their daughter. So that I was very, very fortunate, yes. While other people, children, perished in the gas chambers, I was looked after. Yeah, that was...
What was your false name?
What? my false name, or a horrible name, it was Josette Josette de Flandre. That was my name. Not a very nice name, but that was my name, and I stuck to it. Yes, and I never made a mistake, and I never confided that I wasn't really Josette de Flandre, not even to my nearest friends, and they didn't know about my true identity. I was not going to reveal. Yeah. So.
What was the name of the family you lived with?
Well, their name was Secret, which is the same spelling as secret, but that was their actual name, you know, Secret. And they were very good to me. They were hoping to adopt me eventually, but when my parents reappeared, of course, after the war, yes. Yes.
And was your sister with you while you were with the family?
No. I was separated from my sister then, which upset me very much, but I had to get used to it. Yes, but my sister was permitted to come and visit me twice a year, at Christmas and at Easter. She came to Tournai to see me there. Yes. Yes. So there you are.
Is that where you lived?
What?
Is that where you lived with the family? Was in Tournai?
In what? Where I went with the pair? Well, I didn't get that. Sorry. What?
Where did you live with Secrets?
Yes, I was living with them. Yes, I was, and they liked me, and I got to like them. But suddenly, I was thrown into a French-speaking home, which I was not very good at French yet, because I'd only just came back from Germany. So French I had to learn, and I was very converted to Catholicism, because they were a very religious Catholic family, and so I had to fit in. I had to go to Mass, and I had to fit in because the neighbors would otherwise question, who is this kid? Yeah, so I was supposed to be a niece from Brussels. That's what I was supposed to be, because, yeah. What else?
And where were your parents during the war?
My parents managed somehow to find their way to Switzerland. They were there, but the minute the minute the war was over, they immediately came back to Belgium in the very, very full train of Belgium, of few people coming back home. Yes, so they came to, but they did not collect me straight away. They collected my sister because she was in a children's home, but they let me be there for another year because I went to school and I was very used to the family. But of course, we wrote letters in those days, and I was connected to my parents. I was reconnected, yes. So.
What more can you tell us about life with the Secrets?
What? I didn't get it.
What more could you tell us about your time with your other family, with the Secrets?
They were very good people. They also were business people. They had a very nice business of clothes, just similar to my father, really. And they were good. They were a very nice family. I felt secure there, Yeah, of course. Nothing could happen to me. I had a different name, and I was not going to be caught. No, and I told nobody anything.
So you said you went to church with
Yes, I went to
with the
church.
Clays?
Yes, and I enjoyed going to church, and I wanted to be Christian, and I wanted everything to change because it felt secure, of course. Yes, and I felt like like a family to these people, you know. But after all, when my parents came back, I had to go back, but not immediately, no. A year later, because I went to school. It was a pity to interrupt. Yeah. But I was looked after very well. Oh,
Did you said your sister
but
went through similar circumstances? Did
not
she
no.
also?
No, my sister stayed in the children's home in Belleuil until the end of the war. She was not taken in by another family. No. So, yeah, she stayed there.
And she also learned to pose as a Catholic?
She also wanted to be a Catholic, yes. You know, there was tremendous sort of feeling of security within that particular church going and all that. Yes, she was the same as me. She underwent the same influence. Yeah. So we were both suddenly Catholic sisters until we came home again. Yeah.
Hmm. What do you remember about liberation?
What
What do you remember about liberation?
about revolution? About what? What do I remember
The
about Belgium? Is that what? What's the question again? What do I remember about Belgium? About what?
liberation, about the Allies coming, about the Americans arriving.
I don't know. I don't know what. I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Let me try it a different way. What do you remember about the Germans being pushed out of Belgium?
Ah, well, I remember we were occupied, and yes, they were young men there, young soldiers. The occupation was peaceful in Belgium. In where I was, there was no trouble, but they came in, you know, and started to, you know, to take possession of that country like Hitler wanted it. Horrible. Yes, and the Belgians were very upset about it. They tried to resist it. Yes, yeah.
And in 1944?
Yes, 1944. What happened? In 1944, they were still there until 45. It's at 45 that the liberation, was it at 45, the liberation of Belgium? 44, I think. Now I don't know.
What was the liberation like?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Like an enormous party in the streets of Tournai where I was. Everybody was dancing with everybody else, and people were familiar with everybody. It was a fantastic feeling of victory. And the Nazis had to leave. They went. They went. We didn't want to see them anymore. Yeah, that was a fantastic, like a ball. People were so excited about it, you know, including me, of course, because suddenly
Of course.
I was looking forward to a change. Yeah. But
Did you know if where your parents were when liberation came?
My parents were in Switzerland when the liberation of Belgium took place. My parents knew exactly what was going on, and the first minute they could travel again, they came. Yes. I was very fortunate. So many people didn't find their parents again and didn't find their children again. you know, but we were there. Person that we lost, my grandma lost, was deported from Brussels, actually. She was deported to Auschwitz and murdered there. Yeah. Together with her stepdaughter, because she was married for a third time with a man who had a stepdaughter, who had a daughter, and the two ladies went to Auschwitz. I think they were taken from in the middle of the night and sent to Auschwitz to be murdered there in the gas chambers. Horrible to think about. Horrible. Yeah.
Do you know when that was?
It's actually in a book somewhere, but I don't quite know. Jeremy would know that. Yes. They were murdered on arrival there. At the time when I was rescued from Belleuil, the same day, they were actually murdered in Auschwitz. My grandmother and her stepdaughter and lots of other people. Yeah. They were murdered for being Jewish. That's what we had to pay for. Yeah.
How long after liberation did you see your parents?
Oh, I went back to my parents a year after the liberation because I wanted to continue the same school I went to. They sent me to private school. My foster parents, you know, they were very good to me. They sent me to private school and I wanted to continue there before going back to my parents. Yeah. I had I was very fortunate, very lucky. Yeah.
What was life like once you got back to your parents?
What? Well, I thought I was very young, wasn't I? I was 13 years old. And, you know, I suddenly were with people that didn't have anything. We were suddenly poor for a little while because my parents didn't have much. And I was in a rich family, well dressed and all that, and too young to understand the circumstances, you know. I felt a bit strange at first back to my parents. But soon enough, after a time, you know, yes, my parents understood what goes on. They felt that I was strange, but they let me be, you know. They realized that I used to go to church on Sundays. I didn't tell them where I was going, told them where I was going to a friend. And my mother soon understood what was going on here, you know. So I went to church, and so did my sister also, because we were missing church. But I don't know. We were a bit, I don't know. It's difficult to explain. We were a bit,
For sure.
bit turned, yeah.
That's very interesting. Do you think you could tell us about how you came back to Judaism?
What? Back to Brussels, to my parents. Well, my parents suddenly lived in an extremely cheap apartment in a horrible area to begin with, because they couldn't do any better at the time. But you see, my sister accepted it very well. She was pleased to be there. And I thought, oh, you know, I was a horrible person of 13-year-old. Not very tolerant, no, I didn't like the place. So I complained to the Secret family. I want to go back to you, I said, you know, because I couldn't understand my parents be so poor. I didn't understand. That was a horrible war for people like me, little youngsters who don't know.
How did they rebuild after the war?
What? How did they what?
How did your parents rebuild after the war
They
and
built,
get back on their feet?
yes, they built up with a lot of courage. Yes, they built their life. They built their life up again. Yes, yes. They were still very young, really. Yes, they were in their 30s. My father was 40, I think. My mother was 35 after the war. So they were still young and built up, and it was good. They tried to build up the house again. But I didn't like to live there because I had been living in a very, very comfortable place, rich and all that. So I didn't like to be at home for a time. I rebelled a bit, you know. But my mother certainly saw what was on. She had an inkling that I was fighting with my own self, you know. So,
Yeah, that part's
what?
very important, I think. But that part is very important, I think. How did you reconcile that and come back to
Oh, that gradually happened. It's not in one day. It's just gradually, because my parents, after all, were my parents, and they were very fond of their children, and with a lot of love, I was reconciled, and yes, and the Secret family became friendly with my parents, and you know, similar business they had, really, textiles and stuff like that. So they had a lot in common as well. Yeah.
and did your parents and your family stay in Belgium after the war?
Yes, they did. Yes, they stayed in Belgium. Yes, they died. They died in the 80s. Yes, my father died at 88, I think it was, and my mother at 83. So, you know, normal life, as it is, as it happens. Yeah.
And your sister still lives in Belgium.
Yes, yes, yes. She lives in Belgium. She married in Belgium. She has 3 children. And I came here on a visit to England. We had some friends here, and that was in 56 or 57. I came here, and I met a very nice man, and I married an Englishman. So I'm here now. That's how I came to England, as a result of a visit. It wasn't a visit. It's no longer a visit. I stayed there for good. Yes, yeah. I liked
And
it.
that was in 1957, you said?
Yes, in 1957, I think it was. Yes, yes. More, yeah. So I stayed here for good.
And
We were married in Brussels because I took this young man to Brussels. We were married there, etc., and then came back here. Yes, he was a young doctor, and he was a very, very good, nice family. So I was very happy. Unfortunately, now he has died. We had a divorce as well because things went bad for a time. Okay, that's very sad.
and
Yeah.
and you had your kids?
Yes, 3 children here in London with that doctor husband of mine. Yes. Yes.
And what are their names?
What my children? Yes, David, the eldest, Jeremy the second, who you know there. Jenny, she lives in South Carolina in America, and she comes as often as she can twice a year for sure. Yeah. So we got very, very nice children. Lovely. Yeah, they
And you remarried?
And what? So
And you remarried?
yeah, I remarried because I was, yes, unfortunately we divorced. And yes, I remarried, met a very nice man. He was the second husband, also was born in Germany like me, and we had a very much in common in the past. And both his parents perished in the Holocaust, his parents, and he was an architect and also an amateur painter. All the paintings from him, they're here. Yes. He was a very nice man and everybody liked him. And my children also liked him. So I was lucky, very fortunate to meet this man. Yeah.
And his name?
What was what?
His name?
His name is Leo Eisenfeld, and I'm still Ruth Eisenfeld. Yes. Yes. So there you are. So here I am.
Ali, why don't we take a break at an hour here?
Yes?
Okay.
I'll take a break. I don't know how I managed all this. Is it okay? Am I doing well?
Doing great.
Yeah.
Doing well. Okay, we're coming back from a break with Ruth Eisenfeld. My name is Chad Gibbs, and I'll just start asking some more questions about different parts that we've already gone by, Ruth. So I wondered if you could tell us more about Kristallnacht and your parents and the synagogue that day.
Yes, well, you want... Kristallnacht was actually a horrible day where the synagogues were set on fire, set on fire. It was a horror. I was very young, but I could see it's horrendous. Even now, I was about 5, 6 years old. Yeah. And it's a horror, a nightmare that people had to go through. They were setting the synagogues on fire. And the Kristallnacht, why did they call it that? Because of shattered windows make that kind of crystal noise. The shop windows of very nice Jewish shops, of course, were destroyed, and the goods were thrown out. It was and I witnessed all this. I couldn't quite get it, In a way, it was sort of exciting, but horrendous, even for a very young kid that I was then.
Did you see the fires?
Well, I was with the parents at the time. They were still we were all in Germany still. Yes, when that happened. But 2 months later, was it 2 months later, the 9th? That was in November. Wait a minute. The Kristallnacht was in
November 9th, 10th,
9th of
1938.
November, yes. And in March, we were sent on a Kindertransport to Belgium because my parents didn't know what to do with us. We really, it was an impossible life, impossible.
Yeah.
So we went to...
What did your parents do on the day of Kristallnacht?
Well, my mother, I remember well. I don't know about my father. I don't know where he was, but I remember I was with her and I was upset to see all that demolition and all that glass in the street and all that. It was horrible. Their own country. They did this, the Nazi country, but anything Jewish, they just demolished and, it was horrendous.
Did your parents try to save a Torah?
My parents did not save it because when they got that far, it was locked. The cupboard was locked. So they could take the curtain. The curtain, they took it. That's all they could take. They wanted to save the safer door, but it was locked in. It was locked and they couldn't do it. My parents were religious people at that time. Oh.
And only 3 months later, you said you were
What?
put on the Kindertransport?
What? Sorry? What?
And it was about 3 months later you were
Yes.
put on the Kindertransport?
Yes, that's right, in March. Yes, we were put on a Kindertransport and there was still room, you know, perhaps only just because there were a lot of children there, a lot of children. And we had to leave our parents at the station and they couldn't come too near the train either. They couldn't come to the line. They were out there. They said goodbye over there. And so many of us didn't ever see them again. But I did. We did. We were lucky, fortunate. Yeah.
What was the train ride like from Breslau to Belgium?
It was a long train, and it was a not very comfortable train. It was a wooden benches, you know, not very comfortable, but the kids didn't really mind that. But there we are. We had to leave the parents there. Yes. And none of us knew what's going to happen next. Yeah. So we were saved. Some of us were not saved. Many were not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you went through Berlin on that train?
Yes, we spent a night in Berlin, actually. Yes. It was the first time I saw bunk beds, you know, in a place I don't know where, you know. Yes, we spent one night in Berlin and then we continued with another train. But
do you remember any of the people that you met on the train?
No. Lots of children, lots of young children, and also people older than me, you know, but I don't remember any of them really. I clung to my sister. She was for me, you know, she was my oracle. She was important. So I didn't need anyone but her. Yes.
And the two of you were together all the way to Belgium?
What? What?
You and Dora were together all the way to Belgium?
Yes, we went to Belgium. We were together all the time until the parents arrived. Eventually, they smuggled themselves to Belgium. They didn't have the right papers, but they managed to get to Belgium, you know. And yes, and then we were all together in my grandma's flat. So, and after a few days, we moved out. We went to another flat because we were in Antwerp with grandma. Yes.
Is that how you managed to get Kindertransport? Because you had a grandmother in Belgium?
Possibly. Well, yes, we had to have somebody at the receiving end, of course. We couldn't just go on a train without somebody at the receiving end. Yes. And she was there. Yes. And I remember that very clearly. Yeah.
What can you tell us about what it was like to pretend to be somebody else, to have a fake name during the war?
How can one describe this? It's very difficult to describe, but if you can no longer have your own name. It's as if you were perished already, because you are not allowed to use it because it was Jewish. It was giving you away. So that was yes. It's like I had to undergo that. I had to say yes. I had to give me another name. Yes, another name. I was not supposed to be around at all anymore. So, yes, it probably left
How
me.
did you
What?
how did you get by without someone ever realizing you had a German accent?
Was it a German accent? Yes. No, what they said, that I had a Flemish accent, because in Belgium we speak Flemish and French. So, and having lived in Antwerp and gone to school in Antwerp, they said I had a Flemish accent, which was also not true at all, because I had a German accent. Yes, they couldn't. I still have it to this day. I never said it. Yeah, still have it.
And then I wanted to let you tell your story about how you learned to spell your assumed name.
Well, because it could have been spelled in two words, like de Flandre, D-E, and then another word, Flandre, another word. And I was not told. They gave me the name, but they didn't talk about the spelling. So I really was very upset about this and disturbed about this. So I found my way to the register somehow, pretending I was to do something. And I saw my name written de Flandre in one word. So that was good enough for me. So no more questions. Yes. But I was very happy to find my name on the register, because if they asked me, yeah, I wouldn't have been able
So
to.
you literally had to like sneak a look at your own name to see how it was spelled?
What? Did the wrong name? Well, I don't know. What are you saying? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Oh, that's okay.
What?
I was just saying you had to sneak a look at your own name to see how it was spelled.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Yeah, that's right. I had to sneak. Isn't that amazing? And I did find it. And I was relieved, whichever spelling it was, in two or one, and it was in one spelling. Saw it on the register. Yeah, funny. So,
Ruth, I was gonna start asking you a couple of questions toward the end about years after the war, but before I do that, I wanted to ask you just in general, if there's anything from during the war that you still wanted to tell us about.
what? I did what? During the war that I want to tell you about? Well,
Anything left?
like the bombing and all that, because in Antwerp was horrible. It was, well, they bombed Antwerp very, very heavily in the beginning of the war. And at first I thought it was thunder. I thought it was because we had bad weather before, so I thought it was thunder, but no, not at all. They were bombing our very street where we're living so much, because the airport of Antwerp, Zaventem, is it? No, it was at the end of the road, just at the end of the road, and they wanted to bomb that. They didn't manage it. They bombed private houses, so many private houses. It was horrible. Yeah. So that's what happened. Yeah.
Did they actually hit your shop?
My shop, which shop? In Belgium, in Antwerp, in Belgium,
Yeah.
we didn't have a shop anymore. My father had to give up. He gave everything up, and he collected some money. He had to sell his shop in Germany to come to Belgium. We no longer had a shop. Never again. No. Yeah.
Have you ever sat for an interview before?
Have you ever what?
Have you ever had an interview like this before?
No. An interview I never had. That's my first interview. Yes. I don't know how I'm doing, but I'm trying my best. Yeah,
Absolutely wonderful.
thank you.
When did you write your book?
Oh, that's a while ago now. Actually, I was encouraged by the children to write this book. I didn't really want to write anything, but I did write a few things for myself, and so I did write it. I was a bit pressured, but I wrote it. Did you see that book? It's over there, is it? Yeah? Uh-huh.
I did. I read it.
Yeah.
Do you remember about what decade it was when you wrote?
Do I remember about what date it was? Well,
Like, when did you write?
but it must be about 20 years ago or something, but I'm not sure. Did I date it? I don't really know. I don't remember. But I wrote whatever it is. Yeah.
And your second husband, did he ever write about surviving the Holocaust?
Oh, he actually was a refugee from Berlin. He came over here. Yes. Well, his parents, of course, perished in Auschwitz. He came over here, a lonely 21-year-old architecture student. But he became an architect, and he was very talented. And all those paintings he did, all of them. He was very talented man. When I think back now, I was a genius, this man. I was very fortunate to meet him, because at that point I was on my own with 3 children. But he married me. He married me, and I married him. And he didn't mind. He liked my children. He had never had any before, because he was married before. But we're a very happy couple,
Wonderful.
That was lucky, I must say. And there he loved painting. He was forever producing paint. Yeah. He was forever sketching when we went somewhere, sketching something on a small thing, going home when it's big, He was a very talented man. And I was admiring all that. Yes.
Do you go to speak in schools about what you went through, or?
Well, I did it once, actually. No, 3 times. I did it in Hong Kong, because my son Jeremy, this one, lived in Hong Kong for quite a while, and I went to visit him there, and there was a Jewish school there, and the headmistress was a very friendly woman, and she asked me to talk to the children about the war and what happened to the Jews, and I did that in 3 different times. Yeah, because Jeremy said so, I had to do it. Yeah, I couldn't very well say no. What?
Have you always considered yourself a Holocaust survivor?
What? Have I always considered what? Have I always considered what?
Yourself a Holocaust survivor?
Yeah, yes, of course. I lost all my young friends in Belgium. Couldn't find anybody after the war when I looked for them. Yes, of course I am a Holocaust survivor, yes. Because I was...
I just read that you sometimes had worries about the title. Or
What? Worries about what? The tail? What are you saying?
I just read that you didn't always use the term yourself, that you didn't always call yourself a Holocaust survivor.
Well, I don't call myself anything, but here they call me a Holocaust survivor, because yes, and I am a member of the Holocaust survivors here, you know, but I don't enjoy going to those memories always, you know. I like to live today now, not yesteryear. It was a horrible time. Yeah. I'm enjoying my
So would you
family.
say,
What?
I was just going to ask if you would say you were very or only a little involved with Holocaust history and things like that?
What? I do remember the history. What's the question? Forget it. Yeah.
I was just asking if you were very involved with telling about the history.
Well, if I'm asked, I do tell them, but I can't tell them those horrible stories. What then people were gassed on arrival there. It's too awful for young people. I don't talk about it. I know I'm not, you know, I'm not ready to do more than this because it upsets me as well, not just the kids. Yeah, no, it's a horrible time.
Yeah.
No, and
Well, coming to the end here, before we ask Jeremy back in a bit, I wondered if you, after telling your story about the Holocaust and the war, if you have any message that you want to go with your interview.
A message?
Anything that you want people to know?
A message? I can't possibly see one. It's I can't think of a wonderful. I can't. I'm sorry. People should People should not be afraid to talk about their identity. You see, that's something I could not reveal during the war. It made me suffer. It made me unhappy because I couldn't tell people, not my friends, who I really am. You see, I was someone else. The identity is a very important thing. I think very strongly about that. Yeah. Oh, always be open about one's identity. Yes. Because I was what's called a hidden child. You know, the hidden children, they did not reveal their identity. Big secret. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that's the thing that has always stuck with you, is this trouble with hiding identity and how that made you feel?
What? Hiding my identity? What?
Is that the part that you remember the most?
Well, that was a very strong thing. That's very strong. But yes, and I'm certainly nowadays very open about identity because I don't think it should ever be a secret. Yeah, it was a secret then, but not now. Yeah, yeah.
So I think we could stop there unless you have any more to say. But
what I'm going to say is that nothing has ever stopped anti-Semitism in the world, not the experiences that you went through. Nothing has stopped the experiences, and that is so sad. Because, you know, there are people who hate us. They hate the Jews so much. We never understood what if they hate us. They hate the Jews, they hate the black people, they hate different people, and I can't stand people like that. Okay, we're all humans. Yeah.
I think that's part of why telling stories like this is important.
Yes.
So I really want to thank you, myself, and on behalf of the USC Shoah Foundation, for telling us your story today.
Oh, the Shoah Foundation. Yes.
I think we can pause there and ask Jeremy back in. Okay, we're coming back from a break, still with Ruth Eisenfeld, and joined now by one of her sons. If you could introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Jeremy Amius, and I'm Ruth's middle child, second son and middle child.
That's true.
And did you set up or help Ruth with today's interview?
Yes, today's interview I did. I've been somewhat involved in Holocaust studies, particularly I lived in Hong Kong for many years, and I founded a Holocaust intolerance organization there. And that got me connected with USC Shoah. In fact, I met Stephen Smith a few times, and it was through that connection that I, some years ago, suggested my mother for an interview, but in fact, it took a long time for it to happen. So that was the connection. Yeah.
Do you kind of take on something of a family Holocaust history role?
I suppose so, given that I set this organization up in Hong Kong, although until then, I guess I hadn't particularly. The book which my mother wrote was really put together, although I got it started, my brother really did a lot of the work on the book with my mum. But yeah, I think now I'm probably the Holocaust person in the family, and there's some other projects we're working on. One is there's actually a film script of my mother's story, which has been written and rewritten. It's taken forever, but there's a possibility of some sort of movie at some point, which maybe is a grand project for the future. And the other one, which is exciting, is literally in the next few weeks, we're all going to Brussels together, including Mum, to put down a Stolperstein, which is a stone that one puts outside the building, the last residence of a Holocaust victim or escapee, for her grandmother, who was mentioned in the book. So that's the lady who enabled her to escape, the one who was living in Antwerp, that lady, Shifra Berenkopf. We're going to memorialize her in literally a few weeks' time. And we're reuniting all of her grandchildren, some of whom we've been sort of not in touch with for many years. So it's going to be a very nice family reunion. And I guess I did organize that. Yeah.
Will you also be getting stone for Ruth and Dora and others?
It's a good question, because you're right. You don't only do stones for someone who was a victim. You do them for anyone in their last residence. The complication there is that I suppose we're defining what their last residence is. We haven't organized it yet. We're working first on the great grandparents, because they really have nowhere to be memorialized. Her other grandmother, we are working on doing something in Breslau, which is a bit more complicated than Brussels, which is where we're doing it for her grandmother. But eventually we'll get to maybe my mother and Dora.
We've mentioned Ruth's book a few times, but haven't mentioned the title. Could you tell us the title and the kind of the story of how it came together?
It doesn't really. I think I'm actually looking at it over in the corner. I think it's just called A Memoir.
A Memoir.
A Memoir. I don't think it has a kind of.
That's the title of the book.
Clever title, but it came about because we always wanted Mum to sort of at least record her. I think as people get older, they want to record something, and that, I suppose, applying to the Shoah Foundation was part of that. And then I had the idea to get it written, because she'd written a few little essays about individual periods, I guess.
Yeah.
But nothing to connect it. So in the end, we got actually a proper sort of ghostwriter to sit down with her and battle through it. And then Mum found that a little bit over dramatized, right? So she didn't like the fact that it sort of had dialogue or things in it that, weren't necessarily factual. So Mum wanted initially the book to be very factual. And then, so my brother helped edit that line by line to make it really a very factual account. And then now in the film script, she's happy for things like dialogue and other things that, if you like, are well, not true, but they are dramatized. So that's what she wanted from the book. So that's how the book came about. Yeah.
So I wonder if you might want to tell us about your goals in putting in a memorial like a Stolperstein and in the organization you founded in Hong Kong and helping your mother with her book. Do you have specific ideas in mind with this?
And I'm sort of thinking out loud here, because I've never really tried to put it in words. But I think what I tried to do in Hong Kong was more about education, because in a place like that, there's very little understanding of the Holocaust and the history. You need to also try and make it relevant locally. So we did a lot of work around things like the Nanjing massacre and things that could be, related to tolerance, because a lot of the principles are still apply, but it was less familiar to people. So that was more around education and understanding, diversity and understanding history. I think what I'm trying to do with the Stolperstein is I think, my mother wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my great grandmother. She, by a whisker, she saved her twice, and in fact, she saved her eventually by not being there on October the 29th when she was deported from Brussels, my mother was in Belloy, she's probably explained, and then was moved to Tournai. Right on those couple of days, because my grandparents had fled to Switzerland, they tried to put my mother back with her grandmother. And my grandmother had been deported at that point, eventually to Auschwitz. So in a way, her deportation was what saved my mother, because if it had been a few days later, my mother would have gone with her. So I think she's, look, any great grandmother is worthy of memorialization. But I think in her particular case, we owe a lot to her. Of course, my mother would never have got to Antwerp in the first place if her grandmother hadn't been there. So I think the thing in Brussels is, I think that Stolperstein as a principle is a great memory for the whole of history and for mankind to learn about. And I've observed in Austria and other places, you see school kids looking at the Stolperstein and understanding more about them. I think this particular ceremony, I think, is very much a family opportunity to get together and memorialize someone. And I think what's especially moving is that my mother and her sister, both in their 90s, who are the only, when the great-grandmother died, she had 4 grandchildren. 2 of them were killed in the Shoah. So the only 2, the grandchildren she ever knew that survived, are still alive. And as well as that, there will be 5 other grandchildren of hers that she never knew, but who are younger than my mum. So they will all be there, which I think is very special.
That's amazing. So I think I have one more kind of difficult question to think out loud with. And that's, if you could think about this interview going into an archive and being available for people to come to and learn about the Holocaust, what is the thing you'd want to say to that future, not knowing when somebody might look at an interview like this? What would you like them to hear?
Obviously, the big picture, understanding the Holocaust and human nature are lessons that, mankind has to always learn and relearn, that, what human beings can do to others. As we know, the final solution was put together by a group of people, including many PhDs and professors and highly academic people. So it's staggering to think of what human beings can do to humans. I mean, we all know that. But I think maybe what's individually important is every Holocaust story is very individual and very different. And I suppose if you have 6 million victims and a certain amount of survivors, all their stories are going to kind of be incredible, because otherwise they wouldn't have survived. And I think the unique things about my mother's story that I walk away with are the idea of identity, of hiding, of a changing religion, of the struggles of that. And, a young child being forced to flee. And also, I think the amazing way my grandparents, they all survived, right? So they decided that the family had to split up. It's not an easy decision to make, to leave a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old daughter and yourself flee. And I think that there's, so every story has its nuances, but there's a lot of lessons there about, the unique experience. But I think especially in my mother's case, the struggle with identity, with religion, with learning about getting to know your parents again afterwards, feeling very attached to her adopted family, who, lots of different things, right?
Yeah.
And her adopted family deserve better. I mean, they suffered terrible tragedy. I don't know if my mother told you, but their only daughter died soon after the war from tuberculosis, right?
Huh?
The Secret, Jeanne Secret.
Oh, they lost a daughter. She caught something.
I think
because
it was tuberculosis.
Of all that voluntary work she did with very poor children.
Yeah. So they suffered terrible tragedy. And we've memorialized them at Yad Vashem, so that's nice as well. So there's lots of very human stories, I think, as well. Right?
Yeah, they've been recognized as righteous among the nations.
Yes, they have.
Excellent.
It's quite a process, by the way, to do that. But they really did risk their lives and to save Mum.
What?
They risked their lives to save you, right? The Secret family.
Yeah, unfortunately. They lost a only daughter at the age 25.
It's sad. Well, it is an amazing story. They definitely deserve a great deal of credit. And I just want to thank Ruth and you, Jeremy, for telling these stories and for setting up this interview. Thank you myself, and thank you both on behalf of the USC Shoah Foundation. And I think after we come back, we will have some photographs that Ruth wants to show and tell about for her interview. But at the end here, just thank you both very much again.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
So that would be the cut spot, Ollie. Okay, now Ruth is going to show us some photographs, starting with this one of family. Ruth, could you tell us who's in this photo and about how old you were when it was taken?
Yes, I think I was six years old.
You were 6 years old?
Yeah.
When would that have been?
In 1938, I think it was taken. Yes, in 38 I was 6 years
Who
old.
all is in this picture?
Yeah, my father, my mother, my sister Dora, and myself. It's a very...
Okay. Do you remember anything else about when it was taken?
Oh, I remember that we were always wearing identical dresses, like twins. And
do you know where this photo was taken?
what? This photo was taken in September 1938. Yes. Yes.
Still in Breslau?
What?
In Breslau?
Yes, still in Breslau. Yes, yes. Still at home. Still with no. We were not a troubled family at all. We were a very happy family. So that was taken in a photographic studio. It's a very by a photographer. Yeah. I even remember the name of the photographer. You know, she was a German.
You do?
Yeah, her name was Trude Pieler. That was the name of the photographer woman. You know, took that photo in her studio.
Okay.
It's a happy family.
And that should be it. Okay, for the next photo, Ruth, could you tell us who's in this picture?
Yes, my mother and her siblings. There were 4 children there. So there is my mother and her sisters. How many? 2 sisters and her brother. The little one is the brother.
Which one is your mother?
The one sitting down, the one seated in the front. That's my mom.
Okay. Do you remember their names?
Yes, of course. I think so. My mom is Marie or Miriam, yes. That is, the boy is called Shlomo. They're Hebrew names. And there is my auntie Regina. And who else is there? Can I see? I can't. Regina. And another person.
What about when was this photo taken, do you think?
Oh, a long time ago. My mother was a young girl then. She didn't even know my father yet. No, she was still very, very young. So, a long time ago. Probably after the First World War, something like that, yes.
Okay. There's a cut. Okay, Ruth, in our next picture, who is this couple?
Oh, this couple is my uncle Schleume, the one you saw in the other photo. My mother's brother Schleume, and in his first wife. She died very early on. He remarried later on. Yeah, she died.
She died before the Holocaust.
Oh yes.
Do you know about when this photo would have been taken then?
I don't know when and I don't know where, but probably just this goes back a bit. Obviously after the Second World War. When
First.
people started, yeah, but I can't tell for sure.
Okay. That's it. Okay, Ruth, could you tell us who's in this photo, these three?
Yeah, I will. There is on the left the daughter where I was, the family Secret. Her name is Jeanne Secret, that was her name. And Madame Secret, her mother, is in the middle of the photo. And I am walking along, looking a little bit miserable because I was. And yeah, and that's me, the little one, little skinny little girl. And very frightened.
What are you dressed for?
Just that was very soon after I was separated from my sister, and I was in that family. I was very well treated, marvelously well, but I was so unhappy. I was such an unhappy, unbelievable.
Do you know about when this photo was taken?
Well, shortly after I had arrived there, must be in 41, maybe.
Okay,
41.
that should do. Okay, in our next picture, Ruth, could you tell us who's gathered around this bike here?
Well, I can. I'm holding the bike there, and there's another little girl there. I don't know her, but there's my sister on the edge of the photo, and this is in the court, in the forecourt of the castle of Belleuil. That's where it
Which was the one the prince owned?
The Prince of Ligne. Yeah, that's where we are.
So that would be 1941 or so?
Something like that. You know, it's difficult to say.
Okay. That should do.
Tonight.
Okay, Ruth, who do we have in this picture?
Well, I'd like to see a bit more of it. There is the husband of Madame Secret. His name is Jean Secret, and I am the little girl next to him, and his daughter is next to me, and my sister came on a visit. She was allowed to come at Easter and at Christmas. So she came, that was Easter time. So that was in the garden.
Okay.
It's a nice photo.
About what year do you think that might have been?
40. Well, I was 10 years old, I think. I was 10 years old in 42. Yeah.
42.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this lovely daughter they had, she was a volunteer. She took me to her family. You know, she worked in Belleuil as a volunteer. She took me to her family. That's where I am. And my sister came to visit, and she's on it too, in the garden.
Okay, then.
And that's the family Secret. And the poor girl of 19, there she was 19. She died at the age of 25. She died. Because she picked up something with all that voluntary work. She went to very poor, neglected children, and she picked up some illness, and she died.
She passed away after the war, right?
Oh, what? She passed away.
She passed away after the war, right?
Yes, but it was a sad, terribly sad event, because that's their only daughter, and I was going home to my parents, so they had no more kids at home. It was sad for them.
Okay. Who's in this photo? Ruth?
This photo is my auntie Hannah, the sister of my mother. She's
Okay.
and I am on this photo, the tiny little girl outside
Wow.
the house in which we lived in Breslau.
So this would be, how old do you think you were?
Have a look at me there. How old? About 4 or 5 years old I was, maybe 4.
Okay. Great picture. Let's see, that's it. Okay, Ruth, could you tell us about this picture?
Well, I told you, it is a group picture in the forecourt of the castle of Belleuil. And the children are from Belleuil. They are orphans, they are poor children. And I'm sitting there too, and I'm sitting sad like this because I was utterly depressed and miserable. I really was suffering, you know, because I was miserable and lonely. And my sister didn't even want to look at me. She said, look, if you carry on like this, I can't look at you. Because I was very depressed. How old was I? 9, 10, something.
Okay. And your sister's in that photo too?
Yeah, she's there and she's quite happy. She's there, very, very miserable, very visible, very visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
That should do. Ruth, what can you tell us about this photo?
Well, this picture is taken in a street in Antwerp. My grandma on the right, her stepdaughter with her. That's about all. It's a street picture.
In Antwerp, you said?
Well, what?
Taken in Antwerp?
I don't know when it was taken. Why in April? Why?
That you said it was taken in Antwerp. It's all right.
It was taken by a street photographer. I don't know anything more.
Okay.
It's a street photo.
Ruth, who are these well-dressed fellows?
All these people, they are my father's brothers, and they are not all there. But my father's in the middle. And there were 6 brothers and 3 sisters in his family.
Wow.
A big family.
Indeed.
Yeah. So.
Do you know what they were dressed for?
What? They what?
Do you know what they were dressed for?
It was a wedding ceremony. It was somebody getting married. That's why they are dressed in what you call these very smart outfits. What do you call it?
Black tie.
They were talking.
Tux?
What are you wearing?
Black tie.
They're wearing what?
A black tie. You call it black tie. Tuxedo.
Anyway, there you are.
And top hats.
The person with the white tie
is Uncle Max.
Married. That's why he's got a different.
Yeah, he was
Sorry to interrupt, but that's.
He was getting married. The one with the white tie.
Max. Yeah.
That was his wedding. His wedding, and his brothers were there. There was one brother missing there.
Got it.
Haskell. So there you are. It's a good photo, that.
Okay, Ruth, what's going on in this picture?
There's a family birthday party, I think, for my grandma. Yes, and all of them are there, everybody.
Are you in the picture?
No, I was put to bed. The other baby is up. I was the same age as that baby, and he was up, and I was put to bed. That wasn't fair. So I'm not.
Do you remember, like, when this would be taken?
Well, when I was a baby. When was I a baby? I was born in 32. That might be in 33 or 4. Yeah. Okay. This photo.
In Breslau, then.
In Breslau.
Amazing.
We're still at home before the Shoah and all the horrible things that happened to people.
That should do. we're with Ruth and Jeremy now, looking at Ruth's memoir. If you could tell us a little bit about the book.
What? Yes, well, I've written it under pressure.
We made her write a book.
Yes, I've written it because my kids wanted me to write it.
Okay, so it was worth it, right?
I couldn't very well say no.
It's not a commercial book, but it's a nice family recollection. And so you'll see here, and it's got some very nice photos in it, in no particular order. A parent's wedding invitation.
My parents
this is a very interesting photo here.
That's an interesting photo.
Say about what's going on there. You can see.
But I am on it. My dad's on it.
Yeah. And
my sister's on it as well.
Yeah.
She's dancing.
That's your sister. That's you and your dad.
And you're in a park in Breslau?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they are in a park in Breslau with a good old Nazi banner behind them, right?
What?
There's a Nazi...
Yes, because there was going to be some kind of a, I don't know what, demonstration or something.
Yeah. So it's got some interesting stuff in here. And a good explanation.
It's still in peacetime.
Yeah, this was 36 or 37.
Yeah.
And then you've got different photos, family photos, and a school class in Breslau.
Oh, that was nice. That was a nice teacher.
Yeah, that's one there. So, you've got different, it's kind of interesting. And some of the photos that you've already seen, and it just gets through it in a very sort of factual way. But and actually at the end it has an interesting set of photos about my grandparents' escape from Brussels and the buildings involved in that. So yeah, some very interesting things, which is a nice family heirloom, right?
I think the wedding certificate is pretty amazing too, because it's Oswiecim, or what becomes
yeah.
Auschwitz.
Correct, that's where
they married there.
My
parents married there.
Exactly.
Yeah, the family lived there. Very many of them.
Yeah. Good.
Well, this I think brings us to the very end. So one more time, I'll thank you, Ruth, for sitting with us and telling us about your life and these amazing photographs. And I'll thank you again, Jeremy, for setting this up and helping us conduct this interview. Thank you on behalf of myself and the USC Shoah Foundation. We really could not be happier to record your story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.